Tonight, the Washington Post editorial board has weighed in on the president's decision to decertify the Iran nuclear deal. The headline, quote, Trump has charted a perilous, their spelling, not ours, perilous course on Iran. Quote, in an act of political vanity and geopolitical folly, President Trump has made one of the most serious national security challenges facing the United States, that of Iran, considerably worse. Joining us now to talk about this urgent matter tonight, retired four-star U.S. Army General Barry McCaffrey, decorated combat veteran of Vietnam, former battlefield commander in the Persian Gulf, these days an MSNBC military analyst. Nayyera Huck is back with us, former spokesperson for the State Department, former White House senior director for President Obama, focusing on national security, economic policy. General, the question to you, and it's a tough one because we're dealing with a lay audience coming to the news at the end of the day. What happened today to this deal, to this nation? What happened to our standing, perhaps, with our allies and around the world?
Well, pretty risky course of action. The president obviously is trying to apply leverage on the Iranians, who are causing huge mayhem and mischief in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, now in Afghanistan increasingly. This accord that Secretary Kerry and President Obama got didn't cover. There are many other lines of conflict, nor their missile development program. Now, the problem is, his own Secretary of Defense, Jim Mattis, said, it's too late. We can't withdraw. We will never be able to reimpose the sanctions. The European Union won't stand with us, never mind the Chinese and the Russians. So it's hard to see what leverage he gets when the Iranians can read the Washington Post also.
Nayyera, how do you feel this affects our standing, our negotiating ability? How does it ricochet around the world, and particularly, to name one place, North Korea?
It makes it very difficult for the U.S. to bring anybody else to the table to have a negotiating position with North Korea. Frankly, Donald Trump is signaling that he would rather force regime change of the type that we saw on George Bush and Iraq, where the United States essentially went in alone to topple a regime. Nearly 2 decades later, hasn't worked out well for the United States in terms of national security, and our allies are not with us in that fight. This is the same type of rhetoric that we're hearing about North Korea. It sounds like a drumbeat to war rather than any of the diplomatic overtures we should be seeing at this point to try to not only curtail Iran's interest in developing a nuclear program, which was the purpose and intent of the deal, or curtailing Iran's regional activity, whether it's support for Hezbollah or any other terrorist activities. Those can be and have been addressed with additional sanctions. President levied some today. Congress levied some several months ago. The idea of muddling these sanctions and activity against Iran's terrorist elements and muddling that with the Iran deal is what is very confusing for our partners, because it puts them, our European allies, in the position of having to now renegotiate in a very public way without having any leverage or any understanding of what the U.S. goal is in the region.
So General, you travel the world a lot. When you look at actual damage thus far to our alliances, especially the ones that are so important to the United States, do you see any real reason for concern?
Well, by the way, I fully concur with what Nayyera had to say on these issues, particularly with Iran. But something has to be said here. I think the president has lost almost all credibility with the international community. They're going to wait him out. So I wouldn't actually overstate the damage he's doing. I think the problem is we've got so many crises going on now, potentially, that he's overloading the diplomatic effort as well as the U.S. Armed Forces and our ability to deal with it. But I think President Trump is no longer considered to be a rational actor in this dialogue. I don't want us to take our eye off North Korea. The current language out of the administration, the lack of a diplomatic and serious engagement strategy, in my view, has us sliding toward war by next summer.
Well, Nayyera, I've known the general for many years. I know him as a level-headed man, not given to hyperbole. That is a depressing review of the planet and our alliances and non-alliances. Do you concur?
Absolutely, and let's not forget to underscore this point that the general also made. Iran is now considered the rational actor in this scenario because Iran complied with every aspect of the deal. And in fact, because the deal allowed the United States and other inspectors to take a deep look into what Iran's activities are, there was also that element of intelligence efforts and gathering that, frankly, helped our partners like the Israelis have access and information that they never had before. So in that sense, we, by not certifying that this is in the United States' national security interest, we are now taking away a level of access and visibility we had in Iran that allowed us to curtail lots of this behavior. Moscow and Beijing, we cannot forget about those two actors as well. When the United States recedes from the diplomatic table, Russia, China, they step up and they start moving a position that is not to the advantage of democracy and human rights around the world.
And, General, when I hear you talking about a slide toward war, it should chill everyone within the sound of your voice. But we were supposed to feel better about the people, especially the experienced former military commanders around this president, the guys with some stars on their shoulders.
Well, I think what happened was you ended up with a national security advisor, General McMaster, and John Kelly and Secretary Mattis slowed down the movement on the Iranian deal. By the way, he hasn't withdrawn. The accord's still in place. Right. In my judgment, that Congress is unlikely to reapply sanctions. So let's wait and see.
Wow, what a conversation.
What we do have to watch out about is getting out of this 90-day cycle of the potential to unravel another Obama signature deal. That seems to be what the generals around the president happen to slow roll, and hopefully Donald Trump will be distracted by something else. But this will come up again in 90 days. The
timer keeps coming up, as ours just did for this segment. Our thanks tonight to General Barry McCaffrey and to Nayyera Haq. Thank you both so much for coming on a Friday night.